Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, and welcome to another edition of OLA This Week.
Mr. Moore, what is on our agenda today?
We have a pretty serious meeting today. We're going to talk about COVID-19. We're going to talk about our school. We're moving from face-to-face instruction to distance learning. We're going to talk about some virtues that are very important, as we always do, especially in this time of national emergency. It's important that we focus on our virtues. We're going to talk about what is normality. How can we bring back a sense of normality to our children and our families? Routines at home, routines at school, things we're doing. We're going to talk about opportunities for instruction and how hard our teachers and faculty and staff are working towards that. We're going to talk about distance learning, and you know, we're going to try to address it from every angle. So it's a pretty good show.
All right, that sounds good. And you know, speaking of distance learning has been around for a long time, but never has the word distance and distance learning had such a meaning.
It does.
Correct?
Social distancing is important. We're kind of spread apart today. Yeah. It's very important. It's what our government has put out, that we will maintain some social distancing, and that's a big reason why the children are not at school today, or for a few weeks at a minimum.
That's right. And so I sent out an email to our families. I think it was the day that we closed, or maybe even the day before, just, you know, it was actually the day after, just, you know, wanted to reinforce with our families why these drastic measures have been taken. And then I included in that email a link to two really good articles about that deal with the term that I think a lot of people by now have heard, which is flattening the curve.
That's right.
But just to summarize that, the idea here is by removing, by expanding our distance that we have, by not having us in large groups and large crowds, we're reducing the rate of the spread of the virus. And if we do that, what that will do is that will, in effect, help our healthcare system to be able to manage this crisis better.
To really save lives. It's a matter of prevention saves lives. And in this case, this is a preventive measure to not have children at school, and it will flatten the curve. The curve you're talking about is the exponential growth of virus contagion and the potential for death. Okay, and the death is in our most vulnerable populations, which are our elderly and those that have compromised immune systems. So the rest of us doing these preventive measures will protect those other populations, and so that's important that we focus on coming together as a community. As a nation, as Americans, it reminds me of the greatest generation, World War II, and how those Americans came together. They sacrificed. They gave up a multitude of things so that the people that were on the front lines had what they needed. You know, some examples back then were nylons and plastics and even car tires. But we're giving up things. We may not necessarily have a chance to come to school and congregate. We may not get to go to Mass and congregate, but through those sacrifices, we are protecting our vulnerable population. You know, we want to make sure if we don't need a protective mask, one of these mass surgical masks, we should leave that for the people that do need it, and that's those people on the front lines in the hospitals. So it's important that we're not hoarding anything, that we're making sure that as Americans we can respond appropriately. And
I know on our end, and as you zoom into our smaller community, I can just say that our faculty and staff understands this situation. They have been really responding in a way, just like you talked, very unselfishly, understanding that we're all called to stretch ourselves in ways that are a little uncomfortable for us. And so they have really responded well by coming together to provide a new way of teaching. And I think our parents have as well. But just getting back to what you were saying, how do we respond, and talking about that greatest generation, and talking about even the Depression, that era, they had to learn how to deal with less. And so, parents, just please understand that we know that you've been asked to, that you have a very stressful situation at home right now that you're probably trying to manage with all of these changes. Having children who are now having to learn at home. But we really appreciate your patience. We appreciate you understanding that as we roll out distance learning, that we as a faculty and staff are committed to being nimble and flexible in executing this new way of instruction. I received, Mr. Moore, several emails from parents yesterday when they looked at that, at what that schedule is going to be. And there are parents who are concerned. They're like, I don't know how my child is going to be able to be on a computer for that long and be able to go through all of this. But what we want our parents to know is that our teachers are going to be setting this up in a way that will be manageable. Your feedback is important. So if you find that this is difficult for us, let us know specifically what your challenges are. Start with your teacher, because they're the ones who can really help the most with this. But we're talking every day about this. But just know that we're not asking our students to be on the computer for 6 hours a day. No. There are going to be times where they're on there in a Zoom lesson, which we'll talk about in a minute, for direct instruction. But a lot of this is going to be them working on projects by themselves and then coming back together in a classroom, a virtual classroom community, and discussing those things.
Right. In the Army, we say adapt and overcome. And that's what we have to do. This is a time of adaptation, a time of overcoming obstacles, and we need to come together as a community. And I do appreciate all the efforts that our faculty has put into this. They didn't necessarily sign on to do distance learning. They signed on to actually instruct children face to face, and there's so much pleasure in that because the kids are wonderful to see their smiling faces. The teachers today mentioned to me that that's what they miss at the school right now. It just seems it's just not the same without the kids. So thank you to the parents who are working hard. Thank you to our teachers who are working hard to adapt and overcome.
Yeah, so we were working on, so yesterday we spent a lot of time learning Google Classroom, and so many of you have seen invitations for your students to get on board with that. We've set up their email accounts, they've been invited, and many of them are coming on now. We're seeing chatting in the classroom between the kids on how to set things up. They're really working well together with the teachers to do that. So you will see Google Classroom in our 3rd through 8th grade classes, and that's been a great tool. And then today we worked on Zoom.
Zoom, we sure did. The teachers got onto Zoom. They created a classroom environment or a meeting. They host is the terminology. They hosted a meeting today. They shared it with each other. They were able to collaborate and show little movie clips. They were able to show some artwork, some photos, and different ways to stimulate learning via what would be called telecommunication if you were or whatever your business, right?
Yeah.
But it's telecommuting. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
In the business world, it's telecommuting. In our world, it's teleclassroom or remote classroom, and they've done a great job with Zoom. But Zoom coupled with the Google Classroom is where I think the strength really lies. So the Google Classroom becomes, or it could be SchoolSpeak for the younger kids, second, first, kindergarten, transition kindergarten, could go to and receive information from SchoolSpeak on what lessons that will be available to them that are customized by our teachers. Also, we have opportunities for now for a pickup of material. So
Correct.
For the hands-on materials that the younger kids really need, we've got tables set up in the office and we've got them set up into grade levels. And so there's manipulatives there, there are some handouts there. The teachers are amazing about putting the work in ahead of time so that parents can come pick up this work, take it home and work through it with their children, and then get onto a video cast with Zoom and see the teacher actually doing the instruction. So it's really going to work out. It's a change.
And that pickup system is probably temporary. I don't think it's going to last. I think that, but it was good for this week because I know, especially in the primary grades where they're less able to use some of this technology because they're just little kids, that giving that hard copy of some of the work they're going to do has been very helpful. But I have seen already, just tickled by some of the things that our teachers have been doing and the way that our students have responded. So Mrs. Wright, for example, showed me, she had sent to her students this morning one of the websites that she uses for the kids to do this exercise routine that's a part of her class. And so she sent me a picture of 2 of her students whose parents got them on board with that, and they were doing the exercise this morning.
That's awesome.
And today, while we were learning Zoom, one of our parents, Jennifer Hall, was here. Jen Hall was here, and Mrs. Hall was helping our teachers get things going. And at one moment during our training session, she was working with Mrs. Smith, our 8th grade teacher, and got her to get into contact with her 8th grade students. And so she's up on the screen, her 8th grade students were up on the screen, and it's only been like 2 days of no school, but you can just tell by seeing the faces of the kids how happy they were to be reconnected with their teacher, with everybody else and each other. So as We do want families to understand that the nice thing about distance learning is it's going to provide a sense of normality
For sure.
for our students as they continue the normal routine for them of working together. And what this distance learning invites is a chance for them to be collaborative problem solvers.
Yes.
In a really neat, unique way.
In fact, some of our Z generation students are helping each other.
Yeah.
They become the best IT folks because they're so familiar with IT. They're so familiar with our older kids are so familiar with all of this, with the phones and the laptops and the tablets. So they're actually helping each other get on board with Google Chrome, with the classroom.
We have. And so, out of this really difficult and challenging and stressful situation, and there is not a soul who's not feeling anxiety over this for many reasons. But as you were saying, it's our job, it's our responsibility as leaders, as the adults of our children, the parents of our children, to just model that calmness. Ms. Hall, when she was talking to our teachers today, had used the analogy of a flight attendant on the airplane when there's turbulence. If things are starting to look a little shaky, the passengers are looking at those flight attendants and seeing
how they're reacting. Right.
How they're reacting, exactly. And so as parents, we've got to be that person, and we're doing the same thing as teachers. I also want to say, just getting back to what we were talking about with the usage of this technology, we've been planning all along to use Google Classroom. Zoom has been newly introduced to us. We weren't necessarily planning on using that, but these are excellent tools.
Very good.
And so this is kind of fast-tracking goals that we had already had to prepare our kids to use those tools that people are going to be using not only in high school and college, but in the work world, the rest of their lives.
That's right. It's a good training environment, and we're stepping up to the plate, and we're adapting and overcoming. And the routines are important. The routines, this is going to become a routine for our students, and it's important that they know they're going to log on at a certain time of the day. But I want to make sure, and I know you do too, Mr. Love, that the routines of prayer, the routines of all of those things, our morning prayer that we do, our rosary that we pray every week, that we're going to continue to share that on Zoom for the children. Our morning announcements are a routine. We're going to have those on Zoom as well. So these are the sort of things, and we're hoping that, parents are going to get into this habit of maybe joining the kids for their announcements, for prayer, and praying with them at home, praying the rosary. These are hugely important things for our school and for our community, and so we're just hoping that continues at home and it becomes a routine at home as well.
That's correct. So Monday morning assembly at 8 o'clock, there'll be an invitation to come onto a school-wide Zoom broadcast or webinar.
Because it can be up to 300 people in the webinar.
Yep. So we'll have that webinar set up, and we'll do our normal routine of an opening prayer, the announcements that Mr. Lago writes and that our student council members read, and we'll still have them do that.
Wonderful.
We're going to do our flag salute.
Yes.
We're going to sing God Bless America together across the internet.
I love it.
Yes. And so those routines will be in place. Miss Antonia will come on and do our rosary. And then also, it is Lent, and so normally we do 1 or 2 Stations of the Cross. So we'll set something up so that we can do a virtual Stations of the Cross as we prepare for Lent at this time. So that's good. Getting into just the whole distance learning, we did talk about the parent concerns. So the 2 tools, as we talked about earlier, are Google Classroom, and Zoom. I'll take on Google Classroom if you want to take on Zoom.
I will.
Okay. So let's go ahead. So there's several pieces to this. SchoolSpeak is what we're going to be using to post our homework. And some teachers may use SchoolSpeak, especially our primary teachers. Preschool through 2nd grade. They're going to be doing a lot of posting on SchoolSpeak to get the information out about what the homework is, how to do it. But 3rd through 8th grade, they're going to be using the Google Classroom. And so what Google Classroom is it's just a way for students or for teachers to communicate ongoing with their students as long as they'll receive an invitation to get into the classroom. And once they're in, they'll be able to get information about what's going on. And assignments can be done through the various array of tools that the Google Classroom provides, whether it be a Google Doc that students can collaborate and work on. A Google Slideshow, which is the equivalent of Microsoft PowerPoint. Again, it's a great tool that they can use individually or in collaboration. Google Drawing, Google Slides, Google Sheets, which teachers can use Google Sheets to do a quiz and they can get instant answers back.
Right. That's right.
So it's a very powerful suite of tools that allow collaboration and that allow students to actually submit work in to the teacher, and it helps us to be paperless in an environment where we're not able to make copies anymore. So the timing of this couldn't be better, but once this is all over, that'll be a tool that we continue to use here.
Absolutely. And so in the Google Classroom, in the communications that come out from Google Classroom, will be a link to a Zoom meeting, if you will, a real-time, virtual, face-to-face meeting with children. These meetings can be scheduled one at a time, or they could be scheduled and forecasted out. So you may receive an invitation to a meeting that happens every Tuesday at a certain time, or twice a week, or 3 times a week. The teachers will do this. They'll schedule those meetings, and you'll have a link that will take you directly. And when you get there, you'll be able to join the meeting. Even if the host hasn't joined yet, you can join the meeting, and then the host will come on. Everyone can see everyone's face, which is a wonderful community building activity. But we can also mute everyone. The host can mute everyone except for the speaker, whomever that speaker might be. The child that's speaking, everyone will hear them. There's opportunities to raise your hand in this technology. The students can all raise their hand. It's quiet. They click on a button. It looks like a little handle icon hand comes up, and the teacher knows that they have a question or that they know the answer, and the teacher can then click on them, open up their mic, and allow them to share that information with the rest of the class. So it really gets us back to that sharing with each other in the learning environment, and that goes a long way. I think kids learn so much from each other and so much in that collaborative environment. So there's going to be opportunities to go face to face. There's going to be inside that meeting they can also post, like you said, the PowerPoint type presentations from Google Classroom. They can post little snippets of video. As a science teacher, I would definitely, if I was teaching a lesson on rockets, there would be the space shuttles going off. I mean, we could, down to the second, look at some real-time science. So there's opportunities with technology that's pretty exciting as well.
So many tools and other apps that you're going to start seeing our teachers using that maybe you haven't seen before, but that are just wonderful exercises and activities online that your kids can do to continue learning, to continue growing, to continue exploring, and to continue spreading themselves. I had shared with everybody that article on Isaac Newton and how when Isaac Newton, he was a student at Cambridge, at Harvard, Oxford, at a time when one of the plagues was going on, and so they had this social distance, and he was away, quarantined, and that was where he got so much of his creative thoughts were able to blossom, and some of his theories developed at that time, and then when school resumed, he brought them back, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's absolutely what we're hoping for. And I had a military leader, a military commander, who shared with me that we should never let an emergency go to waste.
Yes.
And we are in an emergency as Americans, but we can adapt, we can overcome, we can make a difference in so much as learning a new technology, learning something new, and expanding our children's horizons. So at the same time, we don't want, and we should seize the moment, right, for studying virtues, for reinforcing our virtues, and that's something that's very important as well, that our parents can, as a family unit, reinforce the virtues that we teach here at school. So we don't want this to go to waste, so we have opportunities here.
No, not at all. We have to be that bamboo that bends in the wind but doesn't break and is strong, and
Absolutely.
This is making us stronger, and so the virtues of patience, perseverance, and good judgment are called for by all of us.
And demonstrating courage. You talked about it. The flight attendants might actually be a little nervous about the turbulence, but they don't show it. So it's important that we as adults, parents and teachers and faculty, that we show courage to our to our students and to our children. And we put up a brave front, and we make sure they know that we're confident we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
We will.
For sure, and our all of us, I know, and it's probably the same everywhere in different situations, but I can, just speaking for our faculty and staff, because we have been deep in this for the last few days, and everything is happening so fast, like things change at a minute's notice, and so we have been drinking out of the proverbial fire hose this week in getting this ready. And you know what? The work has paid off, I think. And our teachers today feel a lot more comfortable delivering this instruction than they did on Thursday when they saw this coming.
Right.
So there was high anxiety.
Yes.
And they've been professional, and they've been responsive. And so I can't say enough, Mr. Moore, how proud I am and how honored I am to work with this faculty.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Love.
Mr. Moore.
How about an elbow? Remember,
Love more than you think you can. Happy St. Patrick's Day.